Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I'm your host, DBJ, and we end this series talking about the OSR versus Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition and the unintended consequences. And I really do mean unintended consequences of shifting from this large, multi-edition, multi-branched fantasy D20 game and many of the unintended consequences of making changes, maybe to hopefully make the game more streamlined and more fun. And unfortunately, we have a gray lump of uninteresting gruel in front of us, and why it is that there's such a draw for the OSR and also a draw towards indie games that give us a different play style. And I thought I would just do like a summary. Yesterday I did quite a bit of a summary, but today we're going to do a very broad summary of many of the changes that happened through the various editions and what ended up happening at the end of it that we're left with today that many players either haven't been introduced to, or when they are introduced to these older styles of play, why it is that games like Shadow Dark and Knave and Mothership and all of these other harsher, more violent, visceral, challenging games with lower numbers seem to be drawing people in, and why it is that players that still want this current edition are scratching their heads like, why would you want to play in a game where you have less superheroism? So let's begin this out with the OSR. Mind you, the O, the S, and the R of the OSR is up for debate, but rest assured, these are iterations of older games using the classic D20 in fantasy. And there's many iterations: Lamentations of the Flame Princess, Swords and Sorcery, Old School Essentials, BECME or BX Dungeons and Dragons, and it goes on and on. And there are new iterations that have embraced those same concepts, like Knave and Shadow Dark, which are, to my experience, two of the largest ones. ICRPG is another one, and there are many, many more. And there are also, and aside to that, there are also plenty of indie games that embrace the idea of making hard decisions, that embrace a play style where life and death isn't necessarily the importance of the game itself. It may be embracing weakness and playing to find out, like the vast majority of the Powered by the Apocalypse style games. There are plenty of games that embrace partial successes, the yes, no, if, and or buts that I, with my phrase, makes fun of, and all those things. So one of them, and let me go through a laundry list. This is not inclusive. There are many other things, but the major factors of the unintended consequence of changing the additions to the OSR have been the increased numbers of hit points, damage levels, things like that. And as I pointed out yesterday, unfortunately, larger numbers is an easy padding. It's like child-proofing your home, and unfortunately, it means no one. Unfortunately, so that's funny. I've never thought of that. Although we could come up with a ton of very fun acronyms for it. I've heard of old school rules, old school essentials. I mean, old school Renaissance, original instead of old, instead of school. I've heard it called system. So yeah. Jay says, I don't understand why the addition words matter so much, because unless you're slavishly following the prescribed setting and or everybody's rules loading, then you still have total control. As a matter of fact, the OSR embraced hacking everything. So that's why, yeah, yeah. Well, I suppose fifth edition would technically be, you know, at what point does it become old school? Since even fifth edition doesn't match fifth edition any longer. You know, even before the new books are supposed to come out and things like that. Yeah. But number bloat is one of the major factors that changes the OSR to modern gaming. And the reason why I mentioned that it had a dead zone when you have number bloat is because other than the mathing of a larger number getting smaller, say in combat, nothing else happens. And the padding on the players, larger numbers, and then the padding on the adversaries, the monsters, larger numbers, just means that we have a longer period of time with nothing happening. There's attrition happening, but not noticeable. Uh, and even resources don't matter because take a nap after the end of a fight and you're back to full health. So there are no long-term effects, which is another unintended consequence by allowing saving throws to get out of any situation, by having no long-term effects at all, even from things such as aging or level drain or poisons or curses or even cursed magic items were a thing. There are no long-term goals to absolve the players of making bad decisions, because those bad decisions very easily go away at the end of a scene. So it means that any decision players make, stepping off of a cliff or putting their hand into a trap or drinking that thing they shouldn't drink, doesn't really matter, because for the most part, there's an easy button to get out of things. And part of those easy buttons aren't even character options. It's make another saving throw. Okay, you're not affected by it. And it's crazy. The first rule since the old days is that you can modify everything to fit your game. Even the eldest of old school D&D made up its own stuff. Remember all the modules that had aliens and the sci-fi stuff? Yeah, they hack their own stuff all the time. And it's pretty ridiculous too when you hear about rules lawyers, because they never point out the rule in like the first 10 pages of the book that says, oh yeah, by the way, if you don't like this stuff, change it. So no rules lawyer ever points that out. Level drain was pretty harsh. Let's be clear, it was harsh. It was deadly even, but it put the fear in you when you had to go up against a monster that had level drain. It was like, I'm not fighting that thing. I worked too hard to get to level 7, right? To have some bullshit monster take that away from me? Hell no. And that fear, it's not in the there isn't that fear any longer. There was a reason for having things like level drain and save or die elements and such. Now I understand, I get it that save or die does suck, right? It really does, especially if the danger isn't foreshadowed well ahead of time. And many of the things that we now today understand holistically about the OSR wasn't really even mentioned back then. Yeah. And a lot of there's a lot of like, there are no corners. There's, like I said, there's no sharp corners. It's all padding. We even made fun of the fact back in the OSR days about jumping off a cliff and surviving a cliff fall. But with the amount of numbers bloat, the weakest of characters can start jumping off of cliffs and walking away from it without any effects. Like if I can share something out to you, And of course, I'm going to share it out because that's who I am. Um, there's a number of spells that had specific side effects that I don't remember if you guys remember this, but these were pretty notable. Okay, so like for example, here's the haste spell, and you got the haste spell. It doubles your speed, right? Okay, and we all remember that part. But does anybody remember this? In this spell, and it doesn't exist any longer. In this spell, it says, additionally, this spell ages the recipient by 1 year because of sped up metabolic processes. Does anybody remember that? Does that wording even exist? Now, mind you, this is from AD&D second edition, and yeah, it talks about like initiative bonuses and moving at twice your speed and all that. But does anybody remember aging their character a year? And remember, this was back at a time when you could literally age your character out of adventuring. That having your character age was an important factor in the game. Let me show you something else here. There was another spell called Lightning Bolt. Now we get it, Bolt of Lightning, the second runner-up to Fireball. But does anybody remember this portion of the Lightning Bolt spell? Let's see if we can hear. If a bolt cannot reach its full length, because of an unyielding barrier, such as a stone wall, the lightning bolt rebounds from the barrier towards its caster, ending only when it reaches its full length. Does anybody remember that? There was also a provision in the Fireball spell that if the fire was restrained by a smaller volume, that the fire would start to stretch down hallways and around corners to fill its complete circular volume. Does anybody remember that part of it? How about the wish spell? Anybody remember this in the wish spell? Darn it, I forgot what page it's on. There we go. I gotta go find the wish spell. If anybody remembers this from the wish, there's limited wish, and then there was the wish spell itself. Come on, it's right. It's close by. I'll get there. There it is. This is the wish spell. It actually goes on to a second page, but this is the wish spell. And does anybody remember this portion of the wish? There we go. Okay. You can now, mind you, this is the wish spell from AD&D, that if it's used to alter reality with respect to damage sustained by the party, bring a dead creature back to life, or to escape from a difficult situation from one place to another, it will not cause the wizard any disability. But all other forms of wishes, however, cause the spellcaster, to weaken with a -3 strength and require 2d4 days of bed rest due to the stress. Regardless of what is wished for, the exact terminology of the wish spell is likely to be carried out. Casting a wish ages the caster 5 years. Does anybody remember that? That there was a consequence to casting spells. So, and I say this, and I bring this up because with no consequences, it was supposed to be a hard choice. And even going back to, I'm going to get to all the brilliant things you guys have to say. Back in the OSR, even standing in a room with 10,000 gold pieces was a hard choice. How the hell did you get it back home? We didn't hand out portable holes and Heward's handy haversacks and bags of holding like candy. It mattered. Yes, there were 10,000 gold pieces, but everybody could only carry about 1,000 a piece if you didn't want to weigh yourself down. And why would you want to do that? And how many of those retainers and henchmen and followers would steal that stuff? And who do you trust to leave that stuff back? Like, getting the treasure out of the dungeon was just as much of a hassle as going down into the dungeon to get it. It was a hard choice. And those hard choices, little by little, unintended consequences were removed. Encumbrance. Well, we don't want to measure pounds. I'm with everybody else with this. Like, I'm not measuring pounds and ounces, especially for those of you that are like, you damn Americans and your inability to accept the metric system and stuff. But even with all that ridiculousness, do we really want to measure poundage on our back? No. But what happens is what happened was that in modern games and a lot of indie games, what do? They have equipment slots. You've got 10 plus your strength or con modifier, and that's how many slots you have. That's it. And everything you carry, spells, equipment, skills, they fill a slot. Make a hard decision. Do I pick that item up and drop this other thing that I think I might need later? Hard decisions. And we'll even talk about the shifting of magic items, which were fragile, limited use, had unique features that were not mechanical but were intended for us to have a conversation. Thanks, Drew, for the Fruitful Void article terminology that you forwarded to me. It was intended to have a back and forth conversation to use these special items by moving less emphasis on acquiring things, which was a reason to go adventuring, to survive in these harsh worlds, and making it player character options. Not only means that there's no hard decisions, that you just get the thing when you get more levels, but it also means the thing can't even be taken away any longer. But anyway, you guys have to say, let me stop sharing this out here. So I said, exactly, they might as well have come out and said, level drain is a sign that you have to run away from most undead. Yep. Even a zombie-like thing could turn out to be a white and bust you down the first level. Exactly. And there wasn't... In a way, pop culture has kind of made this our fault, because big damn heroes don't run, right? There's no... The idea of turning tail and running away, it's not we consider it cowardice rather than not being prepared for the event. And I remember old kung fu movies where the protagonist would get into fights and get their ass kicked, and then would have to go find a mentor or be saved or whatever and leave, and then study and come back. And it was, I need to get my ass out of there. Now I have to learn. Now I have to prepare to go back to the same situation. Now that I'm prepared, yeah, I'm ready to kick some ass. But the lesson was, I'm not ready yet. And the zero to hero portion of the zero to hero terminology, the zero is starting to be erased. Now it's just straight up big damn hero. Now, mind you, there are games that a game that tells you are the big damn hero is not a problem. But for the game to presume that there is an element of it that doesn't exist, there really, in modern gaming, modern fantasy D20, there really is no exploration. There isn't any loss of resources. There aren't very many challenges. And so, like I mentioned throughout the week, the random encounters, the time as a threat level, the food and water as a threat level, aging your character out was a threat level, level drain was a threat, being those damn saving throws that could kill your character off were threats, and being careful in the world was a way you navigated it. That's why games are Knave and Shadow Dark and Dungeon Crawl Classics and such are such a draw now, because some people don't want the easy button any longer. So they made undead truly relevant and fearsome, and not just cannon fodder, skeletons and zombies. They should have spelled that out in the book, though. And I agree. A lot of things, what I'm talking about now, wasn't spelled out in those books. Today, yes, new gamers like literally. I don't have my Knave book right near me, but Ben Milton wrote in the book, in the beginning of the book, like, listen, this is going to be lethal. It's going to take a lot of creativity, and spelled out in the book, it's like, you know what? You're going to survive if you don't roll the dice. I like that in a game that just says straight up front, hey, listen, here's what's going to happen. Here are the things you're going to uncover, or here's the gameplay, and here's what to expect. But back then they didn't do that, so it's unfortunate. Yeah, just so you know, but it should. Everything should have a consequence. I agree. I don't mind hard decisions, because that's the whole point. I have two great options in front of me, and that's a hard decision. I have two great options, one in one hand, one in the other. I can only carry one. Which one do I take? I've got to leave one behind. And now, mind you, the adventure itself could be, I've got one great option. How far can I go without having to double back and get my other great option, which is also part of the gameplay, right? And I think even that makes great options. Do I take one great option and leave my other option in the hands of an NPC that I assume is loyal, but might not be, maybe not? I don't know. Shai says, aging from haste was great. They should have spelled that out too. This is a last-ditch spell for an otherwise hopeless scenario, not to be used willy-nilly for any old combat. And that was the point. You know what? Hey, haste, something I forgot to point out in the haste spell. The haste spell was an area effect spell. I don't know if you guys remember that. The haste spell, so you could accidentally increase the speed of an enemy by using the haste spell. I can call it up if you guys want me to. But that hard decision is just like, yeah. Drew, if you cast haste on your birthday, you immediately force everyone to buy you another gift. I love it. I love that. Yeah. Hey, you better go get yourself an extra cake. That's hilarious. Yeah, I love that. Although, how funny would it be to have that ingrained in the world, like magically? That would be hilarious. Like, hey, it's my birthday again, and they're like, oh no. You could get hit by your own spells. I think that was true in 3.5 as well. Sometimes we overcanon a thing. Remember, I was talking about like the Mandela effect, where we believe a thing was true even though it wasn't. So lightning bolts that reflected back at you, fireballs that filled every nook and cranny to expand out to its volume. So many other spells or spell-like effects and things that were in fantasy that we thought didn't exist may very well still exist. It's just in our own head canon we think that it doesn't exist any longer. Like the XP for killing monsters, right? That was never really a thing. We just, our head canon made it a thing, so now the gameplay makes it a thing. Just like players walking into a room and going, perception check, what do I see? That play became normalized, but it doesn't have to be. There may be there's no terminology in the game that says when players walk into a room, all they have to do is roll dice to explore. No, you can say, hey, if you look around the room, I'll give you an investigation check. Hey, if you make a perception check, you notice something wrong, but you don't know what it is. And those kind of things. Shai's like, wait, the old school lightning bolt is totally uncontrollable, will bounce around forever? Not forever, but pretty dangerously. It was almost designed for you to have to force yourself to get out of range before you used it, because if you used it in close range, it would reflect back at you and your party. That was the point of it. So lightning bolt, like a fireball that would fill hallways, it was intended that the wizard got this great power that could destroy all the enemies, but it had a consequence to doing so. So if you used a lightning bolt down a straight hallway, yes, you could totally slaughter all your enemies, and when it hit the back wall, all the people that made their saving throws would then have to redo it because it would reflect back up the hallway back towards the party. So yes, like Death Angel says, yeah, 5e really nerfed Wish. Yep, sure did. Yeah, it was great that you had to really, really need to use it. Again, a hard decision. A lot of magic items were like these one use or w- items that would draw the attention of extraplanar monsters, or when you use the item once, it would randomly create some other effect or things like that. That again was a hard decision. And yes, I think what has happened is by removing the hard decision, the power of the thing increases exponentially. So, in fifth edition, if a player has a wish or earns wish while through gaming, and they're like, my wizard has the wish spell, and there's no consequence to it, they can just cast wish every single day. But the way it's set up with the side effects, you, even if you earned it, you wouldn't want to cast wish every day. With a -3 strength and bed rest for 2d4 days, and you age 5 years every time you used it. Yeah, yeah, it did force players to be creative and make tough choices. And it seemed, like I said, we've child-proofed the fantasy experience, and there's a lot of players. And I'm going to bring up something that Drew likes to bring up a lot in our discussions and such, and I'm glad she's tolerates me when talking about these things. Sometimes our reason for playing isn't about the success and failure. Sometimes the reason for playing is our interaction with the world. That it's not about my character succeeding or failing. It is about the hard choices. And so now we have indie games that reward players for playing non-optimally. I'm picking on Powered by the Apocalypse, but they're not the only game that does this, where I'll pick on a game like Masks or Monster of the Week or Thirsty Sword Lesbians or Blades in the Dark, where it's not about hit points, it's not about armor and gold, it's about consequences. And stacked consequences on your character sheet are things that you are now fighting against, and you're trying to absolve yourself of these consequences. Consequences can be debts, dependence, being hunted, illnesses, fears, addictions. There's so many in my head that I'm forgetting some of them. And anyway, these consequences are play to find out. You know, hey, let's have a heist where we have to break into a bank vault to get something. Great, you break into the bank vault, but now you left behind you 3, 4, 5 other consequences of performing that action. Now the adventure is, how do we absolve those those consequences? How do we escape from the guards? How do we not get hunted down by the enemy that we stole this MacGuffin from? How dangerous is this MacGuffin to even have it in our hands? Have we created an enemy that was normally our ally? Et cetera, et cetera. And so, yeah. It says, Shai says, got me there. I don't remember all that, but don't you think these horrific consequences load the deck way against the already weak magic user? I thought the whole point was the magic user is a challenge. Well, I think the idea was that the magic user. Let's think about this in a novel or a movie or a television show. We have a person that's in our party that has great power. All they have to do is close their eyes, maybe say a couple of words, read a passage in a book, and they get to change the game in a way no other player character gets to change it. Instantly transporting, mind controlling somebody for long periods of time, instantly healing, instantly blasting down that wall, or whatever the case. They have an easy button. It's not called an easy button in this sense. They have the ability to circumvent the rules. Their existence literally is, I don't need to pay attention to the laws of physics because I get to do what I want. Your party members are there to help you out, because once the magic user does the thing, they're going to be helpless in some manner, way, shape, or form. There's going to be a cost to it. And when we read books and watch television shows and read movies, we look at it and go, oh, yeah, I get it. the person casting the spell has aged or gotten weakened, or by using their spell they draw the attention of great powers from other worlds, or whatever the case may be. They are temporarily blinded because of calling upon extra dimensional forces to blast the castle wall down. And we know, narratively, like, ooh, what's going to happen if they get caught or whatever, or they just passed out. The enemy just found their unconscious body next to a tree, and it just makes more story. So yes, you're correct, but that is the game, right? That is the story. Yep. I mean, hey, Shadow, who even pays attention to like spell components anymore? Does anybody even pay attention to that? Yeah, I remember, it wasn't my game, but I remember playing in a game where the dungeon master had a city state where they had trained dogs that could sniff out spell components. The spell components that were like made out of like plants and things like that, and literally we're going after like bat guano and mint leaves and things like that, and collecting that stuff out of people's pockets. And we were just like, what? We're like, oh shit, they just took away Fireball. And these were mundane people doing it, because the dogs were designed to sniff this stuff out. And if you were able to get it in the black market, you had to watch out because there were guards walking around the town that could sniff this stuff out. So pretty interesting. Guy says, to survive long enough to make it to high level, but then you get a massive payoff with all these ninth level spells. But if those spells can practically kill you, it's kind of a letdown, isn't it? It is. It is. But I think it's like a one and done. It's like I think the idea was, we all know that it's like sitting around and you get to open up the thing that everybody knows is dangerous. The Necronomicon or something like that. Yeah, a lot of this goes back to what I said the other day about computer gaming having too much influence, setting that expectation of leveling up frequently. Yep. Yeah. 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 Yep. It got crazy with epic levels came out. I'm surprised they didn't introduce it in 5e. Yeah. I'm guessing it'll reappear and yeah. Yeah. Epic. Well, in some ways they actually brought those epic level things down into the lower levels in a way, but yeah. Haste and area effect, what the f? I don't remember at all. Did it like speed up time within a given area, or what was the thinking behind that? It was metabolic increase, if I can bring it back. Let's see, what did it say? I think it was metabolic increase. Oop, it was page 308. Yeah. It was. Here is here's the wording, and there's the highlight. For the haste spell. Additionally, this spell ages the recipient by 1 year because of sped up metabolic processes. Now, if you take a look at this, it's a 40-foot cube, one creature per level, and then it says the number of creatures that can be affected is equal to caster's level. Those creatures closest to the center of effect are affected first. So, if a 7th level, at the time they were called magic users, cast a spell, 7 creatures would be affected in the 40-foot cube, starting with the one closest to the center moving outwards. It wasn't only my allies. That actually wasn't the case. It was it was an area effect spell. So you could actually unconsciously even do it to other people too. Yeah. Oops. I'm with you on this one. One of the things I hated with 5e was passive perception to put players on cruise control. I think the passive perception thing was erroneously utilized. So Passive perception already existed in the OSR, but it existed for everything around the player characters. Um, how I describe it was assumed expertise. It was assumed expert. So an example would be Fightor knew about battle, and when they came across a a series of dead bodies, and the fighter character with the 8 intelligence goes up and says, "I'm going to inspect the bodies," the game master, dungeon master would say, "Well, I understand your intelligence is low, and this is not said out loud. I know the character's intelligence is low, but they're a warrior. They know what battle looks like. So I'm not even going to have them roll any dice. I'm just going to tell them what they see. Hey, it was a titanic battle, but you notice that all of the goblinoids were slain by one individual. It was no need to roll because your character is already an expert at the thing that's happening. Hey, thief or rogue, when you walk into the city, you stand in the city square and you see gangs of kids. They're pickpocketing, and over in the left corner, someone standing in the shadows. You realize that that individual is the head of the thieves that are pickpocketing everyone here. That person looks at you. You look at them. He gives you the head nod, and you know it's. Let's not roll the dice. Let's keep things moving. Unfortunately, the over canoning of a thing, the Mandela effect is, oh, passive perception allows me to see everything, and that wasn't supposed to be the case. Wish also shows the character has a death wish. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Yeah, it's the journey, not the destination. Yeah, yep. And with great power comes great age. All right, Stan Lieberwitz. Mages were supposed to start out weak and feeble, but would grow in power as they progressed. Exactly. It was very difficult to get the high levels as a magic user back in the day, because once you got up there, everybody wanted you. The other players wanted you to reach those high levels too, because like this haste spell. It's like we need you to get up there so you can help us out, even though we understand that we have to make the hard decision of whether we should or shouldn't do that thing. Yeah, and issuing materials was in the same vein as passive perception. I agree. I definitely agree. Yep, yep. I hear you. I hear you. And unfortunately, we we keep undervaluing the placing a value on a thing that didn't exist and undervaluing other things that should be more prominent. For example, um, you many of those players wouldn't want to game with me because I think there's a difference between perception and investigation and insight and um, taking part in the game. So I will allow someone to notice there's something wrong. Great, but you don't know what's wrong. If you want to know what's wrong, you're going to have to investigate what's wrong. So player goes into the town square and goes like, passive perception, what do I see? And I'll go, okay, there's um, a group of kids running around. It draws your attention. There are nobles and city folk arguing over prices. That draws your attention. There's to the left, there's a corner with some individuals, shadowy figures standing there. That draws your attention. There's city guards walking around who are ignoring the things that you see. That draws your attention. Oh, by the way, the city the city state gates locked behind you. You notice that, right? Now, why did you notice that? You don't know. It just drew your attention. Now go ahead, tell me what you're doing. Don't top head. Don't look down at your character sheet. Tell me what you're doing. So yeah. Yep. Yeah, and that's a thing. Now, if I can go through a laundry list of some other unintended consequences. Um, Player, now everything is focused on builds. Back in the day, whether you were magic user, fighters, the original characters, your character class really didn't give you very much. It didn't. Now everything is about builds. Now it's every level gives you something that makes you tougher, stronger, faster, more survivable. And unfortunately, what happened is the reason for adventuring disappeared because now there's no reason to go out. If I get to the next level, I get this new thing. I There's no reason for me to make the hard decision about whether I acquire something, use something, or don't use something. Um, there is no hard decision about having two equally good decisions, but only being able to pick one. And now, as because things have been moved from externally to internally to the players, now they just get the thing. There is no hard decision. Not only is there no hard decision, they get multiple uses of the thing if it's used infinitely, like spell cantrips and such. Um, and it never goes away. And most player character capabilities are in a category that can't be stopped. For example, we understand in Dungeons and Dragons, all its iterations, that clerics, wizards, druids, whatever the case may be, are casting magic. But now player characters have magical abilities or fantastical abilities, let me say, that don't fall into the category of magic. That an example would be a paladin's smite. Does a paladin's smite stop because they're an anti-magic show, right? If it is a spell or spell-like effect, it means players have the access to things and there's no counter to those things. So not only do they not have to make the choice, a hard choice, they get the thing. I get another level, I get the thing. Then I get the thing and can use it anytime I want to. And there's nothing in the game that's prescribed that says, when I use the thing, here's a consequence for me using the thing. Meaning, like, it can only be used limited times. It's difficult for me to use it against certain things or in certain circumstances. Now it's, nope, I get the thing and I get to use the thing, and there's nothing you can do to help to stop me from using the thing. And all I have to do is relax somewhere and get the thing back. Um, yeah, and the danger back in the OSR was if you rest too long, you couldn't just take a long rest. There are players that are just used to just taking rests because the tools that were given to the dungeon master back in the OSR are removed. There are no random encounters. There are no random tables. There is no time pressure, and there are no rules to impose that time pressure. There are no rules for context about encounters anymore with reaction rolls and things like that. There was a reason. The reason for having reaction rolls was that you could randomly have players go up against things that could very easily defeat them. But maybe, just maybe, those monsters didn't want to fight in the first place. There was a reason that they were there, and there's no reason to run any longer. Now, players just run up to the monster and just start hitting the easy button. They start spamming their best thing until the creature goes down, and they just see the life bar go, and it goes down. There are no other side effects or consequences of the thing. And so, when I see, and mind you, this is giving what players want, not necessarily what they need. So now the sexiest thing in the world is ever more player options, more feats, more character classes. It's yeah, who says, yeah, there is no time for long rest. I have to work on my own system after the show. Dare I say, you want to eliminate the friction of the moment now so you can get back to doing what you need to do. Um, if you ever run a live play of your game, it doesn't even have to be a live play. It could be a side. Um, I will hover around the Discord and ensure that I will be available. But yeah. Player power creep is a thing. Also, um, system mastery is something else. This is a little squirrely, I'm a little divergent, but system mastery is something that we in our tabletop community value, but we don't talk about. And what I mean by system mastery is um, a new player may not understand how the puzzle pieces fit together, but a player that's been playing for 3 years understands that if they take this feat plus this ability, but and using this skill and having these attributes, it fits together in a synergy that out where the combined is greater than the whole is greater than the parts. And that's where you get the power creep, because there's so many moving parts they keep creating for Dungeons and Dragons that one of those moving parts has an unintended consequence on by attaching it to another moving part. That's why you see multi-classing, right? Hey, my wizard's going to take one level of fighter because fighter has action surge or whatever, which allows me to cast another spell, which means now I've got double the power within one round of combat, which I can go Nova, casting 2 spells back to back, which of course now we've removed the consequences of even using those spells. And guess what? Long rest, I get it all back, no big deal, right? It's the 5-minute workday. Where the joke about the 5-minute workday is that, you know, for 5 minutes the players go into major combat and then they sit down for 8 hours to take a nap and then move ahead another 5-minute workday, 8 hours. And there's even provisions in the game that say you're unable to take an 8-hour rest more than 24 hours. But how many people even relate to that? Along with the hit point padding, talked about hit point padding, that if my character's got 30 hit points, but I've got 3 modes of healing, one from myself built into my character, one from an item that I'm carrying, and another one from another player that boosts everybody. I don't just have 30 hit points. I've got 30 plus the 10 from my own character, plus another 25 from the item I'm carrying, plus another 15 from the spell that my ally is using that buffs everybody. So everybody's getting an extra 15, which technically there's 3 of us, so we're getting a combined 45 extra hit points. It's constant. It's taking the toilet paper rolls and you know, duct taping them to the outside of your body and whatnot. It's the bubble wrapping of the players, because now they can cliff jump, they can put their hands in traps, they can drink and eat and do all the dangerous things. Oh, what is it, an ooze? I'm going to swim through the ooze, right? It's as a matter of fact, there were in the original AD&D, you know, I'll bring up the lightning bolt spell and I'll go back to it. So often, here's something else that's often ignored in spell and magic and spell-like effects. So this is the lightning bolt spell again from AD&D 2nd edition, and it has this I'll do the whole thing. So it has this provision in it, and I want to know if any of you guys have ever used this provision. I remember in my olden days of playing in a game, we used to do this, and the side effects were more harsh than actually getting hit by the thing. And here's why. So this is the lightning bolt spell, and it says, the lightning bolt may set fire to combustibles, sunder wooden doors, splinter up to a half-foot thickness of stone, and melt metals with a low melting point, lead, gold, copper, silver, bronze. Saving throws must be rolled for objects that withstand the full force of a stroke. See the fireball spell. If the damage caused to an interposing barrier shatters or breaks through it, the saving throw fails. The bolt continues. A bolt can breach 1 inch of wood or a half inch of stone per caster level, up to a maximum of 1 foot of wood or a half a foot of stone. So the important part of this is set fire to combustibles, right? Melt metals with low melting point, and saving throw must be rolled for things that withstand the full force of a stroke, which meant that if you failed a saving throw, you had to there was a table that told you about glass, leather, parchment, metal items that you carried on you, and you rolled saving throws for those items to see if those items got destroyed in the blast. Now, we used to roll for if you fell down a pit. If you fell down a pit, you would roll to see if your flask of oil broke open, or that glass potion shattered, or that figurine you had in your pocket broke apart, broke in half, or something like that. And in the game in 5th edition, they literally tell you, oh, the items you're wearing are safe. Don't even worry about it. That all that stuff you gathered, it's safe. Don't worry about it. Yep, makes everything cakewalk. Yep. And Desert said, yeah, chain lightning had chain lightning has some ramifications like that too, where it would hit a subject, and if they failed, basically the things on their body could get destroyed, and it would chain off of them someplace else. And it's a possibility you could hit enemy, ooh, ally, ooh, didn't mean to do that. And it was more dangerous than just hit point damage, because even now you've got players that are like, I don't care if I'm in the blast of the fireball, I've taken 27 points damage, no big deal. I've got some kind of healing capability on my character because I'm a paladin, druid, bard, cleric. I think warlocks have access to it, or I've multi-classed into something, or I took a feat that gives me some recoverability, which means that the 20 to 30 hit points I normally have, that's really fake, because I'm actually sitting at about 95 if you add up all the padding that my character has. Yeah. You're wrong. Yeah, you fall and all your stuff breaks. Oh my god, that's too fast. Oh man. After the fall, your bottle of super glue broke. You are not literally stuck in the. You are now literally stuck in a pit. Yes, that would. It never happened, but you were always afraid that it would. You know, which was the point of all of these stacked ramifications meant that you couldn't hoard your best stuff because there was such a threat you could lose it. It was use it or lose it. So if you had that jar of sovereign glue that could stick two things together forever, unless you had there was another potion that could get rid of sovereign glue, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I'm not going to look it up, but if you found the antidote to the sovereign glue, it also made you wonder, should I keep it around just in case we come across that sovereign glue stuff, pot of sovereign glue? But yeah, there was a fear of, if I don't use this now, and when I say now, I mean like a couple of adventuring days, that we may get in a situation where I might lose it. So we need to use it because we're going to lose it. So there was no hoarding. It was, we've got 3 potions of healing. Great. No need to keep them in our backpack because because the next pit trap, slippery hill, dragon's breath, giant, stomp kicking me or whatever, it could break, or we could use it to trade for something else. It was a series of events that worked together to create the unintended changes in the game. Took away the economy of what was happening in the OSR, an economy we didn't understand until today when we started putting those words into effect. So now, like I brought up Crown and Skull and ICRPG written by Runehammer, developed by Runehammer and other people. These Knave and Maze Rats and Shadow Dark in these games have not only are they putting words to the things that I'm describing, but they are making the gameplay very much a part of that. Cipher system is a good example of this. In the Cipher system, they have things called ciphers, and they are literally one-use items that you get to use, and it has an economy. You gain some, you lose some. You gain some, you spend some. You gain some, and guess what? There's a rule where you can't hoard them. You can only have so many ciphers. If you have too many, they start interacting with each other. So it means that not only can you not stuff 27 in your pocket, it means that in order to get more, you've got to use one. And can those ciphers be powerful? Sure, but you get one use. Hey, I've got a cipher that is an implosion bomb, and anything in the area of that implosion bomb will destroy everything. Cool. We're not even gonna roll dice. If you use this thing, it annihilates everything in that zone, turns it into a marble of everything getting sucked in and drops to the bottom of the pit of the explosion. Great. We don't even need rules for it. You use it, it destroys everything. Okay, but you can only get one use. And having numbers of those things, players might decide, do we use it today? No, let's not use it now. Oh, maybe you need to use, hey, second round of comp, maybe we need to use it now. No. All right, we're getting into a negotiation. Should we sell it? Should we trade it for information? No. And someone else is like, yeah, maybe we should. All that stuff. So Shadow says, so should things like those bad consequences be rolled for, or should a DM use that as a consequence for failure? I don't necessarily agree with everything being random, unless it's agreed upon. Like, what is it? Sorceress. Wild magic, I think should be rolled for because that's the concept that it involves. But I'm all about wheeling and dealing. I'm straight up like, hey, when you use this thing, your magic goes out of control. And if you come back at me and say, I think it would be a better idea if there are enemies in my character's background, and when I use it, they kind of triangulate where I am, and they're hunting me down because it's my part of my character's story. And I'm like, slow clap, yeah, let's do that. As a matter of fact, hey, do you mind if I design those enemies? Maybe they're like displacer beasts and shadow warriors or something or whatever. And you're like, yeah, that'd be cool because I escaped from their guild. I was a true believer, but now I escaped and whatnot. And we could have a whole story. So my thing is, the downsides of the OSR don't need to be negative in terms of how we relate them to the narrative. Because that's why we see indie games looking like Powered by the Apocalypse, I'm picking with you, where it's not about success or failure. It's about how do we deal with the unexpected consequences of our actions. And that is the adventure. So the character that has enemies in their background that show up unexpectedly is an unexpected consequence, if that makes sense, right? And the other players may go, well, we can't afford to have your enemies show up while we're also doing this other thing. But that's the embraced, that's where you embrace the negative portions of the game. And so today I see players rallying, they're shaking the bars of the prison cell going, I hate being trapped by these rules. We need to get rid of these rules. But they're there for a reason. And they're there so that you interact within the cage, not try to escape from the consequence of the thing. Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, Shadows is like, I could see a DM simply saying you fall in a pit and any of your potions have shattered. I would only do that if we've all agreed that that's what happens. If I wouldn't surprise somebody. I would say, hey guys, I'm just letting you know we're playing BX, or we're playing this other game, we're playing Lamentations, we're playing Knave. I'm letting you know, if you fail, roll a D4, and that's how many of your items you're going to lose. And if we agree to that, which I'm going to end this with, the OSR is a great, and rules like games are great BS detectors, but I would work with the people at the table and go like, well, how are we playing? Like, are we doing high adventure where we're not really worried about those consequences? Okay, well then we'll play this game the way it is. But if you want to have those consequences, yeah, we can work together. Yeah, depending on what potions a player has, could have some bad consequences. Also, I don't know if you guys remember this. Do you guys remember the old potion miscability tables? Those were the ones where if you combine two or more together, it would have an unintended. an unexpected consequence of mixing two things. Now, it was intended that if you ingested one thing and you ingested another one, the two would the two would have. I just thought of something. So the you guys can find it. The potion miscibility table was if you took a potion, any potion, and imbibed one. Now, mind you, there were more than potions. There were potions, elixirs, salves, oils, powders. They all had different names. But if you mixed them together, it never said, like a healing potion, if you took two of them together, it didn't say that you avoided the miscibility because they were similar. It said if you drank one and then you drank another one, no matter what it was, these were the effects. We don't even use that any longer. Shai says, "Don't you think letting people know the consequences of their actions is a massive immersion breaker?" I don't think so. Um, there's and I could be dissuaded. I could be persuaded to change my opinion on this, but the player and the character can be separate. And mind you, we talk about breaking immersion, but we do it all the time. Whenever we stop and start rolling dice and it's initiative and I check my character sheet, all that stuff will break. All of that. Um, is that the oh, it won't let me it won't let me go there. Oh, I can't it's not letting me. Oh no, 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 no. I have to oh man. All right, I'll put it up here so other people can see it. Yeah, it won't let me click it. It let you put up the yeah, it won't let me click it. Damn it. Anyway, so my opinion is I think it's better for players, immersion breaking or not, to give them the choice rather than making a gotcha, right? So one of the rules that I think is not placed and why it seemed like there were killer DMs back in the OSR and why players didn't like it is because of the gotcha nature. Like, oh, you went to grab the doorknob. Aha, gotcha. There was a glyph on it. It explodes. You take 38 points of damage. Your character's dead. Um, no, no, no. It the Restream, the broadcasting software that I'm using won't allow me to click it. I can place it up, but it won't let me click to go to that thing because I was going to go to the link. I was going to copy and paste the link and bring it up so other people could see it. Um, but I think there's a way for me to. Let's see. I'm gonna. Here we go. Push. See if we can find one. Here's some images of many of them, and I will. Yeah, I'll share these out just to let people know that the damn thing even exists. Or there's plenty of them that exist. Some of these are homebrewed. Um, there's N World. There's some other ones. Reddit. Oh, there's yeah, that's back from 2022 about mixing potions. But yeah, but yeah, I mean, I would rather the players make the hard decision and give them the information. Now, the question would remain: how do they know? Like, how would a player know that grabbing the doorknob of a place they haven't been to? I would default to the air quotes passive ability of the players, their professionalism. You notice something wrong. You are an expert at something tells you that there's a, and then as a player, I would say, hey, player, I'm just letting you know if you do this thing, there's a chance you're going to have some, and you don't even have to let them know what the consequences are. An example would be, yeah, no more slamming potions. Yeah, yeah. And there's nothing, from what I understand, it didn't matter which ones you mixed. It was just mixing two together. So if they were the exact same potion, it didn't matter. Each one was unique, and mixing mixing the two prevented the. It was a stopgap for basically overpowering yourself with a bunch of potions. A, they could break because of adventuring, and B, there was the fact that, you know what, if I rolled low on this healing potion, I really can't quaff another one, because I'd be mixing them together. Now, you could make the argument, I suppose, you could make the argument that, uh, how do I explain this? Uh, you could make the argument that once the potion has its an effect, like a healing potion, it's no longer air potion. You could make you could do that if you wanted to, but I don't know. I think it's fun. I think it's really fun. Yeah, I'll leave this up here. I'll leave a nerd immersion up here. I don't know his real name. Um, yeah, I just think that's very fun. So, oh, funny. Yeah, Shai says number one explosion, internal damage, 6 to 60 hit points. Oh man, those within five at the time was feet. 5 foot radius take 1 to 10 hit points. So where does explode out of if your character doesn't die? If mixed externally, all in a 10 foot radius take 4 to 24 hit points, no save. Yeah, lethal poison. Yeah, lethal poison results. An imbiber is dead if externally mixed. A poison gas cloud of 10 foot diameter results in all within it must save versus poison or die. Yep, yep. In Miscable, both potions totally destroyed as one canceled the other. Yeah. We did that one time where one healing potion canceled out the healing effect of the other one. It was like, oh, that's it. Was it fire breath or something? It was something like that. Potions work normally unless their effects are contradictory. There is one that's permanent where it affects. Yeah, here it is. Percentage double odds. The discovery, the admixture of the two potions has caused a special formula which will cause one of the two potions only to function, but its effects will be permanent upon the imbiber. There you go, invisibility or diminution, or what's the, I don't know. So many other things, polymorph or something like that. Yeah. All right, so let me end the broadcast with this one. That um, a lot of this stuff was unintended, right? Like, let's not blame the designers that they intended to make these changes happen. What I will blame them for is not recognizing it and either accounting for it and changing it, or embracing it and saying this is the new game style. It seems like Dungeons and Dragons, the current WotC edition, wants to tell everybody that it is a game for all play types, and it's not. It is extremely high level epic fantasy that starts you out as hero. It is no zero to hero. It is hero straight up. There are no consequences. Yeah, yeah. Discovery turns you into a newt. You don't get better. Yeah, I like that. You don't get better. Yep. But um, characters were fragile back then. You didn't just play a character. You played an entourage. Um, Dungeon Crawl Classics has the funnel. Shadow Dark calls theirs the gauntlet, which I think is a better terminology for it, where you play like zero level characters. I think that play style can move further into the game. So what, you're playing three third level characters that are in your entourage, or rather, something we used to do was troop style play. So we would get together and say, all right, guess what? You can make 6 levels of character or characters. What do you want to do? One person might say, I'm going to make a 6 level druid. Somebody else says, I'm going to make a 3rd level character, and then their 2nd level sibling, and then a 1st level servant, right? Like, and okay, that's 6 levels of characters. You get to play them, and then throughout the game, depending on their interactions, of course, the 1st level character would have to hide and run because the 6th level character can be up front, and then we would just it was a legacy thing, and a lot of these little aspects, um, characters retiring around 10th level, between 8th and 11th level, 8th and 12th. In AD&D, characters gained what they call name level, and the point of getting all that golden treasure was to create a stronghold, church, hideout, mosque, wizard's tower, whatever the case may be. Am I wrong? Since I don't hear anything. Um, those events would those things were taken out of the game, so now there is no end point, there's no goal to work towards, and so the unintended consequences of starting to remove these things from the game had effects on other parts of the game. So by players thinking, well, if I defeat monsters for experience points, meant that gold's value in the economy of the game went away. Back in the day, you had to spend that gold to take care of your fortress and your hirelings and your underlings and your followers and your retainers and to, yeah, all that stuff. Yeah, I should always have backup PCs ready. Uh, Nate, if everyone else is hearing me, it may be possible that you are muted because everyone else seems to hear me. Yeah. Anybody let me know if you don't hear anything. Or let me type it in. Can you hear me? Because, yeah. So, lastly, I will say this about about the unintended consequences. Play whatever game you need to play. Um, as a matter of fact, not only should you play any game you want to play multiples of them. There's nothing stopping you from playing the game you want to play, the style you want to play, and how you want to play it. I would just say that be open and honest with yourself with the game that you're playing, and understand what it is. Thank you guys. And understand the game that you are playing. What is the purpose of this game? And when I say the purpose of it, I don't mean that it's like you have to play it or else you're in trouble. Nothing like that. I'm just saying that when playing these games, just understand what's the draw. Why is the OSR a draw? And I feel like these little incremental changes through the game have affected other parts. For example, like I brought about character classes having these incremental increases meant that the acquiring of these ciphers outside of your character was less and less important. So it's funny how it feels like a very simple change. Hey, characters should have just a little bit of extra. Maybe the magic shouldn't be so punishing. Maybe it shouldn't. And then all of a sudden now, when a haste spell doesn't age you 1 year, when age was a factor, um, and aging your character out to the point of becoming elderly, although some elves, dwarves could live very long. Many times, what happened in the game was when you take that out, now there's no consequence. Now we can spam haste spell because you're not going to age. There's no reason why I can't cast it. I'm going to get it back after a long rest because there's no random encounters to make me fear taking a nap in the middle of a dangerous dungeon. So one leads to the next, leads to another. One thing leads to another. Tell me something wrong. Anyway, so guys, thank you very much for letting me rant this week. and come up with a lot of these fun, interesting foibles and whatnot. I really appreciate it. For just letting me just be myself. By the way, you're wrong. You are always welcome here, as well as many other people. The channel is growing slowly but steadily. I'm up to like 20, close to 2,500 subscribers now, which is extremely small for everybody else's corner. But I'm privileged to have the best, the brightest, the coolest, the smartest, the most creative people on the interwebs, and I'm glad that we can hang out in our own corner and not have to worry about everybody else. So, hope your latest Fraction of Eternity draws to a happy conclusion. Yep. So, guys, have a great one. Have a great week. We'll haven't decided yet, but we'll get into some stuff later on. So, guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Thank you very much for spending your valuable time here. I hope in return I can make some change in your tabletop role-playing experience. Guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace and tranquility. Bye.